Not personally. I find a lot of her trajectory to not be my brand of woman leader. We've got 3 major international crises going on and someone applying to be commander-in-chief. As a woman, I want to see you do more than, appeal to giggling and having a girl moment on the stage.
Last night, Kamala Harris bombed in her first joint interview that was pre-taped and was given softball questions by CNN Dana Bash. And the fallout continues to happen as undecided voters are reacting to this interview, even voters who support her. And let's just say if I was part of the campaign, now to make sure we understand why these voters feel the way that they do, let's play the clip that I believe is contributing to their reactions. Go.
Generally speaking, how should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and by extension the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example. That value has not changed.
Okay, so if you can try to understand what she is saying, the bottom line is she has not changed on these policies. Now, her campaign is switching up on these policies because they're trying to win an election. I think this is probably the most truthful she was in the entire interview, of course, that her values have not changed. And when voters hear that, it's not landing for them, which is why you get these reactions.
Why do you see Trump as greater agent of change than Harris?
So again, I've seen what he's done in the past. I think he will continue to do some of that work. I would hope that whoever he surrounds himself with, will actually be advising him and maybe course correcting and doing some more of that with him this time around.
But why isn't Harris an agent of change?
I don't feel like I've seen much of, honestly, I didn't really even know much about her as vice president. So why am I, what is she going to do different, as actual president?
Isn't that by definition a pretty big change by having her be the first female president, first woman of color president? Isn't that a big change?
Well, I don't like identity politics. I like meritocracy, that someone gets elected because they're good or they potentially have the background to do well. She couldn't even win her own primary when she was running against Biden.
Yeah, this is continuing to be the biggest glaring issue of her campaign, is that people don't know her, and the little that they do know her, it isn't sitting with them. Like that interview last night does not land for people who are undecided. That wasn't oh my God, that was an A+ interview. Listen, let's keep it real. Her DNC speech is 10 times better than that interview last night. And that is crazy. And so what will end up happening in the end, they're just going to vote Trump because it's his election to lose. He doesn't really have much to do to convince people because he was already president. And she has a lot of convincing to do because nobody knows her, which is why these voters said this.
I just don't think that Kamala Harris has anything vested in the air finger quote Black or Hispanic experience in so much as it would be identified by anybody that lives in those communities.
You're saying you don't think that she can help Black or brown people?
No, going to Howard don't make you Black.
I think it is impossible to be biracial in America. And I think that it requires that you're covering all bases at all times. And it requires constant recognition of both identities. And I think when Donald Trump says stuff like that about Kamala Harris and implies that she's like picking a race for political advantage, it's tapping into an incredibly familiar sentiment that I think everyone on this panel can understand.
Even though you disagree with Kamala Harris politically, do you feel some kinship towards her as a mixed person?
Not personally. I find a lot of her trajectory to not be my brand of woman leader. We've got 3 major international crises going on and someone applying to be commander-in-chief. As a woman, I want to see you do more than, appeal to giggling and having a girl moment on the stage.
Now, for full transparency, you've got 2 independents, 2 Democrats, and 2 Republicans in this panel. The fact of the matter is, if she was the best candidate that the Democratic Party could put forward, the poll numbers would show that. The way that these undecided voters are speaking about her would be different. And there's only so much gaslighting you could do to the American people. I mean, especially people who are not picking a side, they're just in the middle. Voters are seeing that, and it's not a good look for them, especially when people who are going to vote for you already, when they sound this way, it's not a good look either.
Since the Democratic ticket shakeup, they answered questions ranging from the economy to border security. Their performance got some mixed reviews.
I perceive that it was a little bit of a new environment for the both of them to be on national TV under the kind of spotlight. And I perceive that they got looser and easier as the interview went on.
At the end of the day, those in this room already know who they're voting for and have a fairly good idea of how Bidenomics would transfer into a Harris administration. With that said, Ian Foraker was more interested in performance over policy.
I didn't look to this as an opportunity to learn something. I just wanted to see how they reacted in that high pressure kind of environment. And I thought they did fine. I think they can improve.
Okay, so the one thing that I want to hone in on is what this gentleman said, that she did just fine. Guys, can we just have a moment and really use common sense here? She is not running to be the president of the HOA in your neighborhood. She's not running to even be the mayor of your city. She is running to be the president of the United States, the leader of the free world, the person who's going to sit across the table from Vladimir Putin in China and North Korea and potentially Iran and do these high stake conversations. You're telling me that she did just fine? This is an interview she should have walked into and hit it out of the park. Not because I believe she should have been perfect, but there are certain tangibles that she should have. She should be confident, right? She should be relaxed. She should, you're talking to CNN at the end of the day. What are you so uptight about? I mean, the only reason why she is, and I've said it again, and I'll say it over, is that this is not who she is. She's not a presidential candidate, not because she's any less than anybody, but I don't really think she truly wants to be doing this because clearly she shuts down in those interviews. Now, either I'm wrong or I might just be blind. I don't know. But the point is, when your own supporters are saying, well, she did okay. She did just fine. She didn't mess up, but she also didn't hit it out of the park. Yeah, for your first interview with your support animal in Tim Walz, yeah, way to show that you are ready to be the next president of the United States. It just isn't good. Now, hopefully that made sense. And if it didn't, I believe this senator describes what I just said perfectly.
Former Pennsylvania senator and presidential candidate Rick Santorum. Senator, great to have you on this morning. So good to see you. I'm wondering if you think, as someone who's run for president before, did Kamala sway any independent or undecided voters with that interview last night?
Part of the issue is how low the bar has been set. The fact that they have waited this long to actually do an interview, and all of the talk about how bad she is at it. The same thing with Joe Biden at the debate. He had a very low bar to threshold to cross, and at the debate, Biden didn't do it. I would say here she got over it, but she tripped. So it wasn't a clean, the bar's an inch off the ground and she still stubbed her toe on it. The reason I say that is not just because if you look at the substance, if you read the text of it, you're right, she didn't answer questions directly. Questions she knew were coming. The border question, she bobbled. She didn't do very well on that. And I think the biggest issue is she just looked contrived. I mean, she doesn't come across as genuine. She doesn't cross as a real person person who, I mean, say what you want about Trump. Yeah, he's a billionaire, but he comes across as a real person. I mean, this is who he is. You have no idea after this interview. My values are the same, even though I've changed every position. This is just sophistry. This is not an authentic person. And when it comes to politics, and I think a lot of folks in the middle, they vote by feel. I don't think you feel very good. As I think Trump said, she didn't look like a presidential candidate. She didn't really act like one, and she didn't have that feel of, oh, okay, I know who this person. I have a better understanding of who Kamala Harris is.
Perfectly said. One point that he made that I want to touch on a little bit further is the image of being the presidential nominee is everything, right? When you're running for president, your image is everything. She did not look like a presidential candidate in that interview. And I think Jason Miller from the Trump campaign, he hit this on the nail.
President Trump was right. It did not look presidential. There's a certain threshold that you have to meet when you're looking presidential. Can you lead this country? Other candidates in the past have had it. I don't see that with Kamala Harris. Even Joe Biden, in the event when they'd put him in, say, like a still photo environment, he would look presidential, may have disagreed with the way that he proceeded in his record. But Kamala looked as though she'd been called in by her teacher and the principal to say, Kamala, you have not been to class one day in 3.5 years. It's time to talk about your record. And on that record, she had no good answers. What we saw, though, there's a big, big difference between scripted teleprompter Kamala that we saw at the convention. That was only a week ago, by the way. And then actually being in an environment where you don't have notes, you have to actually answer on the fly with what you're being pressed on.
Right.
And the answers were so vague. I mean, the my values haven't changed get 3 mentions, and say crime, for example, gets 0 mentions.
Guys, remember, this is an edited video. Think about that. An edited video still looks bad. I mean, that says everything. Listen, this interview is not the end all be all for her campaign, right? Let's not be that naive. However, this interview does not help her campaign. In fact, I believe it just hurts her even more when we're talking about the undecided swing voters. If we're talking about them, this is not good whatsoever. But if we're talking about people who are already committed, it doesn't make a difference whether you're on the right or the left. People on the right, we knew this was going to happen. We've been calling this since day one. We know what's going to happen when the debate takes place. People on the left, they're going to keep being delusional, right? They're going to keep thinking, oh, no, it's good. She's doing great. She's the change that we need. And you have to ask yourself, man, where are they getting this from, right? Well, it starts with people who run her campaign and how delusional they are about it. Go.
I do wonder, though, will we see her do another one-on-one interview or in a one-on-one, not having Walz present, or a town hall where she takes questions from voters exclusively?
Well, first of all, this myth that she hasn't done interviews is just a myth. She's actually done 80 interviews this year. The second myth is that she should have done this by herself.
I want you to finish. I want you to finish. I just want to be clear in my question. I mean, since becoming the head of the ticket.
Thank you for clarifying your question. But people have indicated that she hasn't done interviews. That's not true. She has faced the media for the last 4 years, and she's done 80 this year. And then she did one as a candidate. Other presidential candidates, their first interview, all of them have been with their vice presidential candidates.
So this is Mitch, right? Her campaign co-chair. He's absolutely delusional, and you see why. This is going to blow up in their face, because the people who are running her campaign, they truly believe in that. I mean, I would understand if people in charge of her campaign was like, hey, this is our strategy. You know, we don't want to expose her too much. We know that she's weak with this. No. This guy, he's not even willing to admit that this is not a strong attribute of hers, and saying, well, she's done 80 interviews, blah, blah, blah. I mean, cut me a break, dude. It's about the performance. It's about showing up. It's about being unscripted. I mean, she could be taking interviews every time she does a rally. She doesn't. So save it. Number one, the campaign is using every tool in the book to obviously help her get elected. And you have to give them credit. They've been doing as good as they can do, given the candidate that they have. And this is similar to what you see in sports, where having great coaches is a blessing, but it won't really lead to much success if you don't have at least above average or great players, you know, and that's where they're at right now, where she is probably the weakest candidate out of the group of people that we we're talking about that could potentially be running. Number two, these undecided voters, I mean, she did not do herself any favors whatsoever. I don't think she really showed up yesterday. I think her body was there, but she was not there. And I think that is going to be more of a hindrance when it comes to trying to get that uncommitted vote, because those people in the middle are looking for authenticity. They're looking for someone that they see and they're like, okay, I feel her energy. I may not understand everything she's saying, but she gives me the warm and fuzzies. That's not what's happening. And my final point, it's a tough thing when people like MSNBC and CNN are trying to find ways to compensate for your poor performance when they are having a hard time justifying how good this really was or it really wasn't. You're in trouble. I mean, these are the people who want you to be elected, and it's hard for them to support what happened yesterday, right? And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're going to continue to see. So that's my mindset. What about you guys? What do you guys think about what these voters are saying as a reaction to her poor interview that she bombed with CNN? What do you think about how her campaign co-chair is so delusional about the amount of interviews that she's done? And what do you think about this point again, how she's not truly authentic? It's not resonating with uncommitted voters. Leave your answers and more in the comments section below. Thank you for checking out the video today. If you want to support the channel, go to the link in the description below and grab yourself a t-shirt. Stay grateful, stay focused, and stay true. Peace.